ours. Even ask Lord Balfour. It's all ours.
That was why it was part of Palestine.
Of course it was, because conceptually it is. And all that with it, you know how the map of Palestine, the original map had this like long like horn that went up. What was that? That went right into Syria. It was, right? Because that's all Eretz Yisrael. It's ours. But it doesn't come until Mashiach's time. It doesn't, we can't liberate it yet. Just like we can't get up to the full, we don't finish down to the bottom of the barrel, you know what I'm saying? Till then. But then it becomes ours. It will become ours. Because of course there are 10 spheros. Just we need a little help from Mashiach to get access to those. And right now, Klal Yisrael's in a process where part of Eretz Yisrael has become, you know, under our jurisdiction. See for how much longer, Bezrat Hashem, before they decide to toss it away. But in the meantime, it's a taste of what's to come. A taste, it's coming. Okay, so now, what do we do with this? So for example, the Makkah of Dam is that force of David HaMelech in the world. What does that mean? To create, to fight the wars of Hashem and establish peace by destroying the enemies of Hashem. To complete the destruction. To complete the destruction of the enemies. It starts on the previous Yisod, on the previous Midah, with the Yisod of the Tzaddik Yosef, who also is a conqueror, but more in the ways of the natural world and without necessary as bloody, right? Didn't Yosef conquer Egypt? Didn't he rule over Egypt? Usually rulers have to fight a war to become a ruler. What war did he fight? Milchemet ha-lechem. You ever notice the connection between milchama and lechem? What is war? War is about, I need resources, I need stuff, I need parnasa. They used to come in, the Gemara says every day, the princes of Klal Yisrael would come into David and say, Amcha Yisrael tzrichim parnasa. So he'd say, Lech, go take out the army. They said, we tried that already. It's not enough. And then they would go out and conquer more land. So Milchama is about Lechem. Yosef provides the Lechem to the whole world. Yosef HaMashbir. So it is a war. Call it an economic war. Right? Conquering, influence, power, strength, political, economic strength. But David is even further. It's physically destroying the enemies till the end, including who? Eventually, Amalek. Starts with Yosef, ends with David HaMelech. So the Makkah of Dam was about David HaMelech. The Makkah of Tzfardeya, however, was about Yosef. Now, what does Tzfardeya, according to the Tzaddikim, what does Tzfardeya have to do with Yosef? Okay, so the concept here is Tzaddik Yisod Olam. The Tzaddik is the foundation of the world, but Yisod, the concept of Yisod, means moral purity. Physical purity means abstaining and withholding yourself from gratifying your desires in unholy and unwarranted ways. Right? Potiphera wants Yosef to sin. Right? And that's his test. He says, no, I can't do it. You must yukno shalavi. I see my father. My role is the role of Yisod. I have to be pure and holy. Pure and holy. And therefore, Safar Deya is just the opposite. What is Deya? Where do we use the word Deya in terms of holy intimacy? We say Adam Yada Es Chava. Adam Yada Es Chava. He knew her. He knew her in a holy way, in a holy union. And that's what Deya is. But Safar Deya means the word Sipur. Sipur, a lot of noise, a lot of talking. And when you're talking, there's not a lot of privacy. And when there's not privacy in sniut, there's not kedusha, right? What they say about the woman who was attacked by the Mitzri, what was her name? Shlomit bat Dibri, because she spoke. And the Rashi says, mitpapetes ketziporim. She spoke like birds, all constantly chirping. Chirping, 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 talking, relating to people. 1 second. Why are you relating to all these people? Dibur is intimacy. Dibur is the beginnings of intimacy, right? You engage a person in a conversation, you get into a deeper conversation, and then there's a loving expression. That's how it goes. But if you're talking to everybody, that's not Kedusha. That's the opposite of Kedusha. That's Shlomis Bas Dibri. That's Mitzrayim, the anti-Kedusha. I told you about the sus paro. Okay. Paro is identified with a sus, right? What's wrong with a sus? What's wrong with susim? So susim, no, none of the avos had any susim. Did you notice that? Where does susim come from? Mitzrayim. So Avram Avinu gets kicked out of Mitzrayim. They load him up with animals. How many susim did he take out of Mitzrayim? Not one. Yitzchak, how many susim did he have? When Yaacov gave gifts to Esav, how many susim did he include? Not one. Why not? Why is there so allergy to susim? Is a king allowed to have susim? Lo yarbelo, not too many. Right? Because sus represents, paro represents milchama, war. War. They were the original tanks. The original tanks were horses, right? It used to be hand-to-hand mortal combat like David and Goliath. You duked it out, you one-on-one. But once you have a horse, you can drive the person. You can just plow over them. It's like a tank. Which man can stand in front of a horse?
So how they have all the earlier ones?
Till they figured out. Oh. Well, you know what? There was a lot of running with a lot of swords and spears and bows and arrows. The idea of horse-drawn chariots in war was the innovation of who? Paro Melech Mitzrayim. And that's why the sus was not a favorite of the avos. Sus represents zermas susim zermasam. The Gemara tells us that the seed of the Egyptians is like animals. They're like animals. They don't have a human. There's no humanity there. It's a lower level. It's not aleph. It's not or with an aleph. It's or with an ayin. 70, the down low. So sus paro is one and the same. Now, why do I say this? In a marriage, right? The ultimate Jewish marriage. Who was the first Jewish marriage? Adam and Chava, right? I don't know if they wouldn't call it the first Jewish marriage because they were not Jews. They weren't because they were.
No, there were no Jews until my Torah.
Correct. We're talking about the first identifying Avram and Sarah. How did they do in Mitzrayim? How did that marriage go in Mitzrayim? What happened to that marriage when they entered Mitzrayim? She was put in a box, and she was taken into the house of Paro. What do you see? You see that Mitzrayim is the exact opposite of the ideal marriage. It represents the disruption of marriage. You only see yourself. There's no other. Paro takes what he wants. This is worthy for Paro. Paro does what he wants. Doesn't have any consideration for anybody else's feelings. That's why when he wanted, when they wanted to fix it, they had to throw Avram out. Because Avram can't stay in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is the antithesis of the concept of chesed. It's the opposite. They had to throw him out. Where else was... So you see that Mitzrayim doesn't do that great. A king doesn't have too many horses because we're afraid he's going to go back to Mitzrayim, and he's not allowed to have too many what? Wives either. See the correlation? Okay. Now, ultimately, the sus does tshuva. In the Shiras Hayam, what does the sus say? Shiras, I'm sorry, it's not Shiras Hayam. In the Perek Shira, what does the sus say? Does anybody know? Does anybody have a Perek Shira here? You have a Perek Shira? The sus in the end declares the godless of Hashem, the kavod of Hashem. In Perek Shira, and also one more place. In the Navi, when we speak about the fact that the nations of the world will come up to Eretz Yisrael on what Yantif, on Sukkot, right? And all of the Susim will have on their heads Kodesh Lashem. Who else has Kodesh Lashem on their head? Aharon HaKohen. The Kohen God. The holiest of the holy. He goes into which place? The Kodesh Kodashim. Where's the ultimate Tumah? Mitzrayim. The horse? will ascend to heights of Kedusha, right? In Shir Hashirim, we have one reference to a, do you know that we have a positive reference to a horse, a paro? Positive reference? In Shir Hashirim. I compare my beloved one to one of the susim in the Richvei Paro. It's the first time that a sus gets positive billing. It's a transformation from selfishness to otherliness. It's the midah of Avraham against the midah of Mitzrayim. Midah of Sarvan. Okay, fine. So, Tzifardea means collecting intimacy all over, spreading the intimacy all over. Where did the Sfardeim go? Everywhere. Where did they invade? Right into their very bodily parts, into their mouths, into their tanurim, into their bedrooms, into their bed, right? What's the famous song? They say frogs on his head and frogs in his bed. You understand now why Tzifardea is the antithesis of Yesod? It's the anti-tznius. When you're making noise all the time, everybody knows you're around. There's no gedarim, there's no hiddenness, there's no privateness, there's no quiet. Okay. So this is I just wanted to demonstrate to you how the Svarim Kadoshim saw the correlation between the Sfiros and the Makos and the Memoros and the Dibros. And we don't have time to do this. It'll take us 6 months to finish this equation. I just wanted to at least to expose you to the concept. Okay? But now let's go forward. The midah of Aaron is the midah of Hod. Aaron HaKohen went through a tough time this past week's Parsha, right? He lost 2 sons. And the way he lost 2 sons was tremendously tragic, right? And there's tons of explanations given why they were lost. But the main concept is they gave an Eish Zora Lashem, right? They did something they shouldn't have done. Now, Avraham has an argument with Aaron relevant to the death of these 2 sons. What was their argument? Does anybody know what they were arguing about? The Seir of Rosh Chodesh. There were three chatas, 3 sin offerings that were offered on that great day. You know what that day was? Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the month that we're just about ended. That day was the first day of the Mishkan. That day which was the Nasi? The Nasi of Yehuda, Nachshon ben Ami Nadav. And it was also Rosh Chodesh. He had 3 Seirim, 3 sin offerings. Seir represents the Yitzhahar, represents Esav, actually. And one was for the Mishkan, one was for Nachshon's gift, and one was for Rosh Chodesh. Comes Moshe Rabbeinu in this past week's parsha and says, I don't care that you're an onain. An onain is somebody who is in biblical mourning. Do you know how long that lasts? You know what the period of Aninus is? Less than 24 hours.
Depends when you're buried.
Right. As far as the Torah is concerned, if the person dies during the day and is buried on that day, that is the only Avelus which is from the Torah. That's called and even the following evening is the Rabbana. And Moshe Rabbeinu instituted Shiva. Did you know that Moshe Rabbeinu instituted Shiva? The Rambam says that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who came up with Shiva. And also, guess what? What other Shiva? Again, a 7, right? What is the other Shiva? Shiva Yemei Mishta of a Chassan and Kala. Interesting. Guess what? It was the same rule. Hashem said 7 days for the mourner, 7 days for the Chassan. It's 7 days with a cutoff point. It's like to the minute. Do you know that halachically, the Brisker of Paskin, that you count exactly at the end of that day that he's a chassan, shkia of that day, right? Let's say they were married on Sunday. So you get Sunday, day, is 1. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. When Shabbos is over, can you do Sheva Brachos? No. What if you start Shalosh Shuddis? Can you make Sheva Brachos? No! No! Why? You finish Sheva Brachos after Shabbos, you finish the meal after Shabbos. You know, usually Shalosh Shuddis runs late. Because
Still Shabbos until.
you would think, right? Brilliant. That's good logic. Some poskim say that, but the majority of poskim, including the Brisker Rav, say, Ois chasan. You're out of luck, buddy. You go from a prince to a pumpkin. And boy, isn't that true? We'll give you 7 days, and that's it. You're out, buddy.
Just saying if you get mad.
Roll up your sleeves and take out the garbage.
The Rebbe's Rebbe hold like that.
If you get mad.
His Shabbos went on and on and on.
Correct. But Shabbos you're allowed to extend. And you can even say Ritzei. And you can say Yalav Yavu and all those things. But Chazan, forget about it. It's a remarkable halacha.
So you can't have a shalosh shidduch as a Shabbos
On the 7th day.
on the 7th day.
Right.
No, it's just lunch. And that's Shabbos lunch.
Right. Of course, if it's the 6th day, it's not an issue.
Right.
But if it's the 7th day is Shabbos, you must be finished. You have to bench before Shkia. And then, now, but you have a problem.
My sister.
It doesn't work because you can't eat, really. You can't drink the kos. Right? We don't drink the kos of benching when you bench after Shkia. What do you do with that kos? You defer it to Havdalah. So it's a big mess. And then once you're saying Havdalah, you can't make the Shev Brachos. Forget about it. You want to have Shal Shudas at 2 p.m., yeah, then you can do it. But if you're going to cross the line of Shkia, you're done. You're done. Okay? Not allowed. Because Chassan is a Chassan. Moshe Rabbeinu instituted Avelus and instituted Sheva Brachas, right? But Aninus is only that initial moment. Yet, the halacha is that a Kohen cannot perform a ceremony of a karban when he's in biblical Aninus. Neither can the Kohen Gadol fully. The Kohen Gadol, the difference is that a Kohen Gadol can bring a karban, but he cannot eat it. Because eating it means he's bringing the kapara. He's kind of like digesting and absorbing and finishing your Aveira. But if he's stymied, if he's affected, if he's defective by virtue of him being touched by the Malach HaMavis, then he no longer has that power. He has to wait. So Aaron said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I can only eat the karbanos that are once in history. The first day of the Mishkan, where Shem's presence came down. The karban of the Nesiim, which will never happen again. Those I can't. Those Hashem said is an override. There's an override. You can eat those. But the things that are going to come regularly, like next month is going to be the next Rosh Chodesh, I'm not allowed to eat it. It was burnt. And Moshe Rabbeinu had a big fight with Aaron about it until Aaron convinced him. Hayida B'nei Hashem. He says, I've been touched by the Malach HaMavis here. You haven't, Moshe. You didn't participate in the Chet of the ego. You were up on Har Sinai talking to Hashem. You're perfect. Your face will be filled with or, right? Light. But our faces are filled with or, with an ayin. We're just flesh, mortal flesh. We cannot partake of the karban Rosh Chodesh. And that's what the Gemara... Now, that happened in this week's Parsha. So Aaron, HaKohen, the Midah of Hod, is the time when man is still very compromised, right, by the possibility of Aninus. Aaron stands between the Chaim and the Mesim. Gee, that sounds familiar. Where else did Avram stand? Aharon stand between life and death. Where did Aaron stand between the living and the dead? When there was the plague, right, that started to break out in Am Yisrael, and Aaron takes the Ketores and stands between the dead and the living. And as Rashi tells us, he grabs the Malach HaMavis and he drags him back to Moshe Rabbeinu, to the Mishkan, and said, you got to stop. And he says, I'm not going to stop unless Moshe tells me to stop. Because Moshe overrides the Malach HaMavis, but not Aaron. And therefore, in the 5th millennium, which is the millennium of Aaron, okay, it's very difficult to overcome the Malach HaMavis, the Satan, and for Mashiach to come. Get it? So in that 1,000-year period, it's almost impossible, very difficult for Mashiach to emerge. It would require great, 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 incredible merit, and it didn't happen, even though there were great people living then. So from the year 240 to the year 1240, which is the 1,000 years of Aaron, we're still struggling with who? The Satan and the Yetzer Hara. We haven't quite finished off. And which Makkah was that, by the way? Dam Tzvardeya, Kinim, right? The Makkah of Kinim. Do you know what was different about the Makkah of Kinim? And this will close. The Jews had Kinim also. It doesn't say in the Torah that there were no Kinim in Eretz Goshen. Do you know that? Because there weren't Kinim in Eretz Goshen. Those nasty. You know, you have to do the nitpicking to your kid. We just had to do that recently. They pick them up. What are you going to do? The Jews had Kinim also. Just not overwhelmed by Kinim. But Kinim they had. Aaron HaKohen's Makkah. Just still a little bit of the taste of death. We can't quite beat out that Malach HaMav. Not 100%. Okay? So that's what happened today. And therefore, what I wanted to show you, just in summary, we have an incredible system that emerges from these few Mishnayos. The world is traveling, the world that was created with Maimoros is traveling through a process by which it got refined in Mitzrayim, the Makkahs hit it down, the Nisim of the Koach of Klal Yisrael goes up. Takes time. We're now finally at the end of that process. We're in the Yosef zone, and we've been in the Yosef zone since 1240. But now we're in the last third of the Yosef zone, which is called a Teres HaYitzod. Started the year 5666, and starting then, our power really emerges, which is why we're sitting here in Eretz Yisrael. We're able to beat back the forces of Tumah to a certain extent and reestablish Torah. 5666 is called a Teres Yisod. It's the last, right? Two-thirds of the century is gone. Of that millennium is gone. Okay? And what happened then? We spoke about it very briefly. I'm over time. Do you want me to continue for a few minutes? Do you want me to continue for a few minutes? Okay, so, and I don't want to rush because we have a lot of material to cover about that last third. I have a lot of material for you, and I don't want to, how shall I say, I don't want to skip over. But, if you understand the concept of Tzadik Yisod Olam, Yosef conquers evil, right? Potiphera, Mitzrayim, withstands the challenge. Starts winning the Milchama, the economic war. Yosef becomes the king of the world. Isn't that funny? What do the Goyim say about Jews? Those Jews are running the world all the time. Can't get rid of those guys. Like the Abarbanel. He was running which country? The greatest power of the time. Ferdinand and Isabella's Spain. And they said, you can stay, but you got to become a Goy. You got to become a Christian. No way. I'm out of here. Right? There's always that inyan of Yosef. Wherever we go, wherever Jews go, it's the same old story. Even good old America. Look what's happening in America. Right? Who's the most influential couple in the entire United States of America? The richest country in the Western world. Who? The Kushners. Yeah. Who keep Shabbos? Who made a bris during the election campaign? Did you know that? Yisod, Midas HaYisod. She made a bris. I don't think she paid for it. Maybe she did pay for it. The Zaidi didn't pay for it, that's for sure. Yeah, the other Zaidi paid for it. So there's a remarkable thing about how we conquer the world through tzidkus, through yashrus, through kedusha, through our incredible gifts of knowing tzafnas paneach, knowing the hidden secrets of the world and thinking in a way that reveals mysteries that the world doesn't understand without us. It's a remarkable thing. But anyway, in the year 5666, what happens according to the Vilna Gaon is the culmination of what started in the year 5600. 5600, according to the Zohar, is the opening of the gates of wisdom that prepares for Shabbos. You want to know when Shabbos really starts? In the year getting ready for the overlap between Yosef and David, between Malchus and Yesod, between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David, logically comes in the year 5600, right? Because you've already finished 60%, and now you're in the minority, you're in the last 40% of that time. There's what we mentioned, we call it in Israel chafifa. You know what chafifa means? When you get fired from a job in Israel, right, they let you stay on to teach the guy that's taking your job. Right? They're very lovely that way. It's called chafifa, overlap, right? I'm going to teach you the ropes, you know. There's a chafifa between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. And that starts in earnest in the year 5600 with the advent of the opening of the Shari Chacham. All right? We're going to go into that in more detail, but just know that Vilna Gaon said the real opening of the Shari Chacham, and the Shari Chacham was begin to open in 1840, which is the year 5600. The gates start to open, but you know, gates take a long while, especially if they're big gates, and this is Shari Chachma. The wisdom, the hidden wisdom of the world, science, technology, and Torah are all opening up the floodgates of wisdom. It takes a little while for the gates to open. It takes 66 years. So the real opening of the floodgates of wisdom was the year 1906, which is Ateres HaYesod, the year that Einstein published his 5 papers in physics. It's known as the miracle year of Einstein, where he transformed the knowledge of the world in physics and science, and everything changed. It was the year that the Model T Ford went on to production, so people started to move, and it was the year that airplanes started to be constructed in a serious way, as Hashem was speeding up the world and getting the world more mobile, more flexible in its thinking, preparing us for high technology, the atomic bomb, big travel, and unfortunately, big world conflict as well. We're going to go into it in more detail, including, I'm not going to say about, Besikum. We learned today about the 5th parak. We continued that concept of the 7s and the 10s, and we mentioned just very briefly that Aaron HaKohen, who was experienced in this parsha, was the wrestling with the Malach HaMaves that ruined the day of the Mishkan, the great day of the Mishkan, is a symbol of why in that 1,000-year period of Aaron HaKohen, we couldn't quite get the job done. We made progress, tremendous progress. And think about it, Aaron HaKohen, what type of things does Aaron HaKohen known for? Ohev Shalom, Birodev Shalom, Ohev Esabrios, Umekarvam Le Torah. Okay? That was the great challenge, and remains the great challenge of starting with the era of Aaron, and we're continuing with that. And we'll continue with Hashem in 2 weeks. Okay?